Manchester United 2, Chelsea 1. Finally, another 3 points on the board for Manchester United. Although I have to be honest, I have never felt so conflicted after beating a team from inside the top 6. At the end of the day, we won. That is great. That's excellent. That's exactly what we wanted. Not many people had too much hope before kickoff. So to get a win in any way, we take it all day long. But actually, in terms of the performance, we did play against 10 men for 85 minutes. We never quite killed the game. And in the second half, we completely lost control. So a bit of a weird one to analyse, really. Now, of course, whilst it was 11 versus 11, there wasn't really much to talk about because it didn't last for longer than 5 minutes. However, I do still want to cover one thing because I think United started the game in the right way. The Old Trafford atmosphere was actually really good last night. And the United players sort of reacted to that and played on the front foot. When I saw the starting 11, I was a little bit worried that we would be defensive. Of course, we had 5 literal defenders on the pitch, a holding midfielder as well. I was a little bit concerned that United were going to come into this game and sit really deep. But we didn't do that. Early on, we put the pressure on. And we put the pressure on in a slightly different pressing shape to what we'd see usually. So Šeško, of course, is going to be the main man up front. But in the wing-back position, we're going to see a slight imbalance. So Mazraoui played a little bit deeper, almost a bit more connected to a back four. Dorgu went a little bit further forward, and then Bruno Fernandes would do the same as well. So it almost became, if you look at it like this, a bit of a 4-1-4-1 shape for United. Now, what you will notice is that still means we are pressing with one less player than what Chelsea are playing with. So if Chelsea have got their back four here, plus 2 central midfielders, that's 6, plus the goalkeeper, that's 7, but United actually only have 5 in this position. So you would think United are going to struggle here, but we didn't, because Benjamin Šeško was really good with his pressing work right from kickoff. And what he was doing was forcing Chelsea to play one way. So we weren't necessarily man-to-man with Chelsea initially until we locked them to one side of the pitch. And Šeško was key to that. So let's say Chalobah has the ball and passes back to Robert Sanchez in goal. Šeško's going to curve his run so that when Sanchez gets the ball, he now physically cannot play this way because Šeško is in the way. Which means United don't need to go man-to-man all over the pitch. We just need to go man-to-man in this section here. And now we were able to do that. Let's say Ahmad might squeeze a little bit higher. Bruno Fernandes could go across and Mbeumo could come across as well. So yes, Chelsea technically have 2 free men, but they can't find them because of Šeško. Now, of course, I can't tell you whether or not this is something that would have lasted for 90 minutes because it was only 11 versus 11 for less than 5 minutes, so it's difficult to say. But you can see what we're talking about here. United have less players than Chelsea initially, so initially you may be a little bit concerned. But Šeško's going to do his job really well. He works hard, he works with intensity, but also intelligently, curving his run towards the goalkeeper, blocking the pass back to the Chelsea player. And of course, that means Robert Sanchez is going to have to play this way. He can't play left, he's got to go towards the right. So for United, that makes things quite straightforward. They all need to shift over to that side of the pitch. And then eventually, we are man-to-man over here. And Šeško is really putting the goalkeeper under pressure, which means the 2 Chelsea players, the near side, can't be found. So Chelsea have to send the ball long, and nothing comes from that. On the flip side of things, 10 seconds later, that's right, 10 seconds later, something happens. United have the ball in a deep position, and to be honest, the Chelsea press isn't particularly good. It's sort of man-to-man locked one side, but not with great intensity. You can see Pedro, in terms of closing down Bayindir, isn't as close as what Šeško was up the other end of the pitch. So Bayindir's got a bit more time, and what he's going to do is send the ball long. Exactly what you want to see from 2 top 6 teams inside the first 5 minutes. Long balls from the goalkeeper. But for United, there's a difference up front. First of all, the quality of pass is better because Bayindir has more time, but Šeško in the air is absolutely amazing. And actually, he is dealing with these situations much better, much quicker than what I thought he would after making the move to Old Trafford. I think he's been absolutely brilliant in some of these situations against some really good centre-backs. Here you will notice the centre-back actually starts to leave the floor slightly earlier than Šeško. He tries to get up and above him, but he can't because Šeško is massive and his leap is just insane. Bryan Mbeumo times the run brilliantly in behind, and sometimes football can be as simple as that, and then of course Chelsea go down to 10. Now normally when a team goes down to 10 men, I may not actually discuss the personnel changes too much because chances are it will be one defensive player for a forward player to shore things up at the back. But today we are going to discuss it because I don't know what Enzo Maresca was doing. If you go down to 10 men, the one thing you need is an out ball. You are likely now to have to defend deep, so perhaps you need some pace or some ball carrying in transition so you can still carry a threat up the other end of the pitch. What you don't do is this. So of course Sanchez is sent off, so he has to come off. So you're going to bring a forward player off for a goalkeeper. That's sort of reasonable, right? That's a reasonable thing to do. So Esteval comes off and Jorgensen goes into goal. That's probably the only change you make. Perhaps you would push Palmer to the right-hand side and you would go sort of 4-4-1, for example. You could do that. But Chelsea take this not one step, but 2 steps further. They also take off Cole Palmer for a holding midfielder or a box-to-box ball-winning midfielder in Santos. And they also bring off Neto for Tosin Adarabioyo. Chelsea go to a 5-3-1 after 5 minutes. And I cannot get my head around what Maresca was trying to do here. I do not understand it. It was almost a bit like he rage quit and actually just didn't care at this point because he was a little bit salty at the early red card and just sort of threw his toys out the pram and went, all right, let's just park the bus and play for a 0-0. Tactically, it's actually really bad from Maresca. Really, really bad and almost a bit cowardly to play in this way so early in the game. Of course, playing in this way, though, is going to be good for United because it means United are going to have a lot of the ball in the first half because here Chelsea are going to struggle to get pressure on the ball. There were moments where they tried to be fair, but the problem was for them, if they're trying to squeeze a little bit higher on the press, they've got one less player and United could sort of move them about. There was a really nice moment where Mazraoui actually drew out one of the centre-backs. I think De Ligt had the ball at the time. He draws out one of the centre-backs here, and then United can go long in behind with the second run from midfield. United had too many players. Chelsea couldn't press in these moments. So actually what Chelsea had to do more regularly was sit really deep. So we can basically grab this lot here and move them all the way over here and drop Chalobah even deeper into the defence. Now for United, it's going to be a game of breaking the team down. And to be fair, we know this isn't United's biggest strength. I think early in the season, we've looked at our best in fast transitions. So this game is a bit of a different challenge. Chelsea have got 3 centre-backs and also 3 feisty midfielders. Through the centre, that's actually not going to be very easy to play through. That's 6 players in a block there. To try and work the ball through there could be quite difficult. So the width is likely to be the better solution. And what United did was found a nice solution out wide, particularly on the right-hand side. I've spoken a few times recently about how when we get into the final third, having a right back and a left back, who aren't the best going forward, as your players with the final ball seems a little bit flawed. What we did in this game was a little bit different. Mazraoui would actually move a bit more inside and Mbeumo would peel a little bit wider. You can see that in Mbeumo's pass map here. He was passing from a much wider zone than what he has in recent weeks. You can see this here. Look at the bottom right. Mazraoui is about to move infield even though the ball is on the other side of the pitch. And the reason he does that is so that when he does get the ball in this position here, he's going to have a really easy pass out to Mbeumo. That ball is going to be really easy for him. And then, of course, we are leaving Mbeumo, one of our better players, 1-versus-1 against Cucurella. Now, Cucurella is a good player and had a really good 18 months right now. But he's not an amazing 1-versus-1 defender, I don't feel. So I like this from Amorim. It was a different solution to try and break down a block, getting Mbeumo into more natural positions, and then getting a better crosser of the ball into this position. Now, actually, to be fair, in this game, we didn't really see the true benefit of that because the final third delivery was still inconsistent, but I liked that solution. I liked what we were trying to do. Outside of that, United didn't have too much. There were moments where we sort of connected well. Of course, we know we're going to massively overload Chelsea here because if we take this one step further, if we go here, we've got 6-versus-4. United are going to have the spare man. We've got really good technical players. You're going to find some space. The problem was the end product was just terrible. I mean, Ahmad, I don't want to pile in on him, had a really bad night. He's not had a good start to the season. His decisions are just wrong at the moment. Things that aren't coming naturally to him. Perhaps he's overthinking it. I'm not sure. But he's not playing well right now. But I still believe in the boy. He's a hard-working young man. I dare say he'll get himself back on track and be fine. But at the moment, he's struggling a little bit. And, you know, him with Dorgu, Dorgu's not exactly a great asset in the final third. It left us a little bit toothless down the left-hand side. We just didn't really have much there to trouble Chelsea. Then on the right, we had Mbeumo. But apart from that, United were lacking. And I do just want to put a question out there. If you're playing against 10 men, particularly 10 men who have got 5 defenders and 3 ball-winning midfielders, do United still need 5 defenders? Or could we have been more aggressive? Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, despite the true attacking threat from United, we still are heading towards half-time at 2-0 up, and then something rather silly happens. Casemiro gets himself sent off. Now, I don't actually feel that it's a yellow card, but we all knew what was going to happen the second he put his hands on the Chelsea player. It's really silly from Casemiro, and a game which we could be looking at as a really easy game now. 2-0 up, complete control. We can batter Chelsea now. We can actually get some confidence going. Maybe we can get a first goal for Šeško, for example. We could win this game 4 or 5-0, realistically. That's what I was sitting there asking for. Then Casemiro gets sent off and he lets his team down. He does. He lets Amorim down. He lets himself down. He lets the team down, the club. It's bad. Really bad from Casemiro. A player that experience should not be taking that risk. What United then do in the second half is problematic for me personally, and this is why I was so conflicted at the start of the video. We won 2-1, but didn't play particularly well at any point. It's a bit of a weird one. Perhaps it's nice to win despite not playing well because we don't normally do that. I don't know. But what we do at half-time is we do exactly what I laughed at Maresca for doing. Maresca took off his forward players, he took off his outlet players, and with 10 men chose to be really defensive. United then follow up by taking Šeško off for Ugarte. Now, Ugarte coming on was a completely sensible transfer, substitution. If you're down to 10 men, you get someone with a bit more energy who can cover a bit more ground. That makes sense. But I just think we could have bought someone else off. For example, we could have bought Ahmad off and kept Šeško on. We could have, if we wanted to, just saying, taken a defender off and gone to a back four. For example, could we have moved to like a 4-4-1, something like that? That could have been possible. Instead, what we did, though, was we sort of put ourselves in defensive mode and we put ourselves into passive mode. Now we're looking a bit like Chelsea. Now we've got 5 defenders on the pitch. We've got 5 defenders on the pitch. We've got Ugarte deep. We've got Bruno Fernandes deep. We also dropped Ahmad really deep into midfield and left Mbeumo high in this position here. This shape is exactly what we saw from Chelsea in the first half. We laughed at them for it, and then we chose to do the same thing. Now, of course, game state is very important. United were 2-0 up at the time, so we do have a lead to protect at least. You know, it's not quite as cowardly as what Maresca did, but it's still not great. In my opinion, we're now man-to-man. You know, this is a man-versus-man battle. It's 10 versus 10. We shouldn't have to park the bus. I think Chelsea have got so many defensive players on the pitch at this point that we should just go, honestly, play a little bit of keep ball. We should get a Kobbie Mainoo on the pitch, perhaps, if possible, even a Xerxes, people that can look after the ball, and United should see out the second half by controlling the game. But we don't. We sit really deep. Look at the possession in the second half. United had none of the ball. This was when it was man-to-man. And that's actually why the Šeško substitution didn't make too much sense to me. Because if the game is now man-to-man, that means there's every chance the long ball returns, right? Because let's say India wants to play out from the back. Now Chelsea, if they wanted to, I'm not too fussed about the shape here, but if Chelsea wanted to, they could go man-to-man like this, which means United might need to go long to get out from the back. The problem is we've taken Šeško off. Mbeumo is a good wide target man against fullbacks, but against Tosin Adarabioyo, he's not going to get anything. And actually, we just see this in this moment here if we go over to it. United are forced to play the ball long because Chelsea are pressing high. And in the second half, we have no focal point. And Mbeumo's not a striker. He's certainly not a solo striker by himself. And this really let Chelsea just right back into the game. Now, this isn't me just making things up. We've already seen that Chelsea had a lot of possession in the second half, but they also completely had the momentum. Look at the momentum shift in the second half. And again, this is man-to-man. This is when it's even. This is when it's level. A level playing field. You're actually just going at each other again to see who the better football team is. In my opinion, United had the better players on the pitch still, because we actually still had more attackers than Chelsea. We had Ahmad and Mbeumo, whereas they only really had Pedro. We had Bruno Fernandes, whereas they had Santos, for example. So United, in terms of personnel, was still the more attacking team, which is why, in my opinion, I would have liked to have seen the team jumping on the front foot and really putting Chelsea under pressure. Like I said, in that first half, certainly the first 20 minutes or so, the Old Trafford crowd was so good, and it really sort of fed into the players. The players were really jumping high, really aggressive. I think De Ligt deserves so much credit for the way that he played. He was really aggressive, jumping forward from the defence, and had an amazing match. An amazing match. I would have loved United to have continued in that fashion at 10 versus 10 with 2-0 up. Let's play with a little bit of confidence. But we didn't. We sat really deep, really passive, and invited Chelsea back onto us. Of course, eventually they get the goal. Now, I will say, Chelsea were terrible. Chelsea did not create anything. They scored their one opportunity they get in the match. Outside of that, they didn't do anything. United largely defended pretty well. I think Shaw, Maguire, and again De Ligt had really good matches. De Ligt, possibly my man of the match, actually. He was really good defensively, and I think his intensity, his aggression that he brought to the side was exactly what we wanted from him. So I was really impressed with that. But I still can't help but feel that it's too defensive. Now, like I said right at the start, it's a bit of a weird one because we won 2-1 and beat a top 6 team, so we should just be happy. It's 3 points on the board, on to the next match. You know, we should be happy with that. 2 wins in a row at Old Trafford for the first time under Ruben Amorim. But we always have to look at it a little bit deeper than just the result. The performance wasn't very good. We did play against 10 men for 85 minutes and only won by a 1-goal margin, and in terms of possession, we didn't dominate the game. We didn't control the game. So I'm disappointed. to tell the truth. Result, so pleased. Over the moon with the result. We needed that win. We desperately needed that win. We needed those 3 points. The players needed that lift. We probably even needed that battling performance, which we got. The interactions with the crowd, in my opinion, are things that I like to see. But the performance, still not great. I don't think we learn an awful lot about United's kind of future here. I didn't see a United performance which gets me excited. I didn't see anything which is like, oh, okay, things are changing. We're moving in the right direction. So it's a bit of a weird one. We deserve to win, so we can't complain too much. But I'm going to complain a little bit because we didn't play very well against 10 men. At the end of the day, it's a 2-1 win for United. So I'm happy. Let's build some momentum on that. Let's continue to improve the performances. That's the most important thing next week. Hopefully we do that. Hopefully we get another win and things start to look a little bit easier for us. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't know because we're just going to have to wait and see. For today, there is literally nothing else to talk about. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video and finally a win. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.